Hello. Thank you for your patience, my friend. Let's hold up 1 second actually. One sec. All right. I just need to load this really fast, but I have your chart pulled up. So, yeah, you've got the Aquarius sun with Saturn on it, and the Virgo moon, and the sun's in the 11th. The moon is in the 6th, and then your sun's T trine or T square with Pluto, and opposite Chiron, and you've got Venus rising, so in your Aries rising, which is awesome because it just aligns the chart really well. First house in every chart is linked to Aries, so when you're in Aries rising, every house in the second house Taurus, third house Gemini. So an Aries rising is the only rising sign that has that same sequence for their houses, which makes it so each planet that falls anywhere is going to fall not only in this, I mean, obviously they're going to fall whatever sign they fall in, they're going to fall in a house that is linked to that sign. So hold on. Okay. Well, so what's up with a Aquarius sun with Saturn on it? Well, basically, when Saturn's on your sun, your first 30 years are not going to be easy. It's not like it's not like it's like a hell, it's not like it's like hell or anything like that, but Saturn on the sun will create all kinds of setbacks. But it will ultimately, lead to a lot of character strength later on. With Saturn, everything in life gets better. And you're in your Saturn return now, in the thick of it even. And I think your life is really gonna, if not already, but it's really gonna start to feel like a lot of the work that you've been doing, like Saturn will make it so like you're putting in all this work, right? And you feel like you're taking 3 steps forward and then it's 2 steps back. Then it's 2 steps forwards, and the universe just does something to push you 4 steps back, right? So it can have like a pretty sobering effect on the personality. And it can make people, so usually like, and with your chart, there could be some issue with the father, most likely. I don't like to like ascribe things to parents, but the sun oftentimes does represent the relationship with the father figure. Saturn there could have definitely like been a strict father. I mean, what your chart indicates is that there's definitely one parent that was, probably more hard on you, where there's a lot more pain with that relationship. While the other one, and with this whole parent thing in astrology, like it's so fucking hard. Like I've kind of given up on it. Like I'll still say it, but like my experience, like and follow-ups and stuff is just very much like it's tough. Sometimes I'm spot on. That's why I always say like it could, another way to think of it is like, the identity and the way that, as humans, we're trying to have a strong, like we want to feel powerful, right? We want to feel powerful within ourselves. And when you have Pluto squaring the sun, Chiron opposing the sun, and Saturn on the sun, that Aquarius energy wants to be different and wants to find itself, right? South Node in Gemini, North Node in Sag, and I actually, you're one of the rare people that I remember. I don't remember what you look like. I never looked at what you look like. I just remember that you are Serbian and you're living, forget where. So actually, I don't know shit about you, but I just kind of remember. Um, but yeah, like I just know. I guess the only thing I remember is that I'm pretty sure you live like you like I just remember you live somewhere outside of where you're from. And that is totally in line with your North Node journey of Sag, ninth house. Um, there's a past life tendency for you to stick around in your immediate environment. And maybe I'll be right back if you can still hear me, but maybe be a little bit predictable, you could say. A little bit predictable or a little bit like a little bit where it's kind of hard to when I think about a Gemini South Node, I think about someone who in this lifetime, there could have been a tendency to I just get funny images, right? Like I have images that I associate with different things. And with Gemini, I get like this, and you're from Serbia, so it's a lot like Romania. Well, I guess it's not really, it's more of a universal thing, but I just think of like a lady in a barber shop, in like a town. I think of a lady in like a town, a Balkan town, who's just chilling, like, in the barber shop, or not barber shop, I guess, like the, salon or whatever, and just kind of talking about, um, kind of gossiping, and not even like in a bad way, but just very, very close to home. And because of that, there, in this life, there needs to be, well, like if that's the tendency, then it keeps one away um, from developing higher philosophies, right? Sagittarius is like where you take all of the Gemini mini bits of information and turn it into guiding life philosophies. And that's best done through traveling physically and metaphorically. Metaphorically would be this exact reading, or learning a book about a different, about a philosopher, reading like, I don't know, like a book like this about like, Sufi poetry, or just really trying a lot. And you get that the most through being in connection with different cultures. So um, I believe that you do. Yeah, I'm really positive that you live away from Serbia. So that's totally in the best line of your North Node, right? And as I say, like a lot of people that I know that have your South Node and North Node, and just to recap, the South Node is the been there, done that in past lives. The North Node represents where you're trying to get to in this lifetime. So a lot of people that I see with that North Node and South Node combination, including my own brother, um, they've had opportunities in their life where they could have expanded their horizons, but they've declined it. I've noticed that a lot of people with that sometimes feel difficulty in respect to getting out of where they're from, which sounds more like Taurus, but Gemini is, like I said, it represents the immediate environment. So there's only, if you're just staying in your immediate environment where you're born and all that with the same friends, how are you going to expand your worldview, right? And it's the same thing with just being open-minded in general, and the more information that you take in, the better. But like the thing is, you're not supposed to take in, take in, take in. You're supposed to um, take it in and then transform it into your guiding life philosophies that you then transform into your dharma, right? What you're doing for a living. So, um, yeah. So like with the sun, with Saturn, 11th, it's interesting because a big part of your life purpose is related to friends, related to humanitarianism, related to making like a big, big contribution to society. Quick second again. Having trouble with my phone charger. I need it. I'm using the. Okay, I think it's kind Why did it not turn on? Okay, not. So, okay, stay like that. No. Stay. Hey, Mika. So yeah, with Saturn in 11th, like there can be difficulty. I always think Saturn 11th house people, like it's better to have a few really, really good friends than a bunch of fake friends. Well, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. And sometimes it takes them till around 30, the point in your life where you're in right now. It's a really exciting time for you to really meet the people and the causes, the things that they're meant to do. Like the greater 11th house also represents like the greater life goals we have. Sometimes the ones that take a lifetime to figure out. So when your son's in the 11th house, it can be the case, especially with Saturn there, that the first 30 years or so is kind of spent figuring things out. And then you really like move towards your mission later in life, right? And there's not necessarily only one mission, but as a Sag North Node, a lot of it is around just being an adventurer, just being an adventurer, being a free spirit and learning. So it feels like you're already doing that, even though I don't know anything about you on purpose. I don't know anything about any of my clients until after the reading, but yeah. So um, being opposite Chiron and square Pluto means that the T square shoots out in Taurus in the second house. um you know Speaking about these aspects, it's the sun, it's within 1 degree, so it's like nearly an exact square opposition with Chiron, the moon in Virgo and Chiron. But first, or wait, what am I talking about? I meant to say this, the sun and Chiron. Duh. Or yeah. So basically a lot of times that represents like and the Saturn on the sun can have the same thing, where as an Aquarius, yeah, you want to be different. It's about like being rebellious in a good in a way where you find your authentic self, so escaping from conditioning. So with Saturn there, it can kind of, sometimes there's like a parent that was overly rigid, overly maybe like very perfectionist, like wanted you to kind of, and I don't like to say, like I said, I don't like to say like a parent, like it could have just been the overall formation of the self that kind of pushed you to kind of like stay in one lane, like this is how you're supposed to live your life. So as an Aquarius, you're trying to escape that, right? um so a lot of times there's some self-consciousness around self-expression. And as a Virgo moon, that can be difficult, and it can be uh there can be some anxiety. People with Virgo moons, they can have OCD tendencies potentially. I'm not just gonna shit on Virgo moons, but the point is that they really need to feel like what they're doing in their life is really, in your case, moving towards your North Node, right? So it'd be a little bit different. Is really necessary. It's being of service, helping people. But the whole thing is that, hey, Mika, Sun Saturn people, they are super good at setting up success for themselves and being very responsible. But sometimes, yeah, there can be like an over seriousness to them early on, which can kind of restrict, the full essence and inner childness of the inner child kind of energy. And I was just gonna guess. I literally did not look. I swear on my life, I did not look. I was like, I bet you she has Chiron and Leo, or in the fifth house, and you literally have both because yeah, you have Chiron and Leo in the fifth house. I say if you watch my readings that I post, like you could literally see this in a lot of my readings where I say something like, I literally wish I would say these things when they come to me instead of just like thinking it and then looking. Because I'll say it like if I was wrong too. But yeah, the reason I knew that is because when you have that, Chiron is the wound. So Leo represents the inner child within us, right? So when there's the wound in Leo, that means that we had to grow up fast. That means that kind of continues on what I was saying. So Chiron Leo people, they have to, and especially the Virgo moon, that adds even more to that potential perfectionism. Some people with charts like this, they feel like they're only lovable if they performed, like the girl who doesn't want to be a lawyer, but her parents want her to be a lawyer, so she goes to law school even though she hates it, that kind of deal, right? And yeah, Virgo moon can be very, very critical, self-critical. And that self-criticism and perfectionism, like I need to hit 100. If I cannot hit 100 on every area of life, like overly, just like very, very grandiose like ideas of what they should be accomplishing, then it's like, oh, I should just fall to 0. I can't do it. So it's all about understanding that, like, on some days your best will be 100, on some days it'll be 80, some days 60. Like today, for example, is a good example from my life, right? I don't like talking about myself that much, but like this is a good example. Today I woke up, I slept horribly, and I knew that I just wasn't going to do shit today. I worked out yesterday. I had a lot going on. I had a long class yesterday, Mika. And I just was like, you know what? Just one of those days. And I rested, and then here comes tonight, and I'm working. So if I had like a perfectionist attitude, I would be thinking in my head, like, oh, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? I'm falling behind. I'm anxious. Like people are getting nervous, but they're not, like, I have so many readings in the wait list, blah, blah, blah. But no, everything comes at its own time. Sometimes the Virgo moons, they can be so hard on themselves and so thinking that everyone else is up here and that they're down here, when in reality, they're up here and people are down here. That's a big thing. So Virgo moon needs to borrow. It's very good at organizing. It's very good at, they feel comfortable when everything in life is at ease, like the daily things, and things are clean, when things are things are in order around the house, etc. But yeah, with the Chiron energy, like, Virgo, because it's Mercury ruled, it makes your moon, which is your emotions, ruled by Mercury, which is about intellect. So people with Virgo moon, they need to get good at being able to not just talk about their emotions, they need to get good at feeling their emotions, right? It's like the idea of like the person who goes to therapy and they just talk and talk and talk and talk. I kind of do that sometimes, but whatever. But I know I'm doing it. But like, they need to feel emotions, right? You can just like apply too much logic to emotions, and it's not good. It's not bad. It's just like, at sometimes you have to feel that, right? And sometimes the mercurial moons can distrust emotions a little bit. So back to what I was saying with Sun and Chiron, and how it's going to relate to that Chiron, to that Chiron, is that basically the Sun and Saturn, because of the strictness of that aspect, this one brings lots of, some kind of wound, right? Usually with the father, that makes one feel lonely, lack confidence. But really, it's Chiron is a healer, so it's through this wound that person is able to truly, truly open up in terms of their empathy for others suffering, and they can really find like these latent past life skills of them as a healer. And then the square with Pluto is super important, right? And when you have Sun square Pluto, that could really it makes a very intense person. It gives like a scorpionic energy. But the issue there is that Saturn, I mean, Pluto is, I always tell people with Sun square Pluto that oftentimes growing up, they felt like there was some kind of threat to their identity. Could be a trauma, but it has to do with power. So it's this theme of power versus feeling empowered versus disempowered. And the healing with Pluto square Sun is about allowing it's, and sometimes it comes through traumatic or difficult experiences, but allowing the self to transform. So that requires a lot of surrender, which can be very, very hard, right? Like the ego doesn't like surrender. So I've seen like this aspect, I see it in clients. I also see in the chart, like charts of some people who are power trippers, right? And it can be very detrimental early on because it can make someone like add power dynamics into relationships. Because it can give such an intense nature too. And the big key word with this, the keywords are control issues, potential abandonment issues, right? Because with the Saturn on the sun, one can feel unlovable. So there's like, this is a very classic chart of someone who has to get past all these healing energies. That's why the first 30 years, I always tell people who have charts of difficult aspects like this, and it's not like you have that many difficult aspects, let's be real. But there's enough to where, you know, it's just important to know that to not feel any shame for whatever happened the first 30 years, you know? And when you feel like you're not in control, just feel into it, you know, what comes up in those situations. So, you know, relationships, and you have the Venus square Mars too, so that can be difficult with relationships. It can kind of create like a very like feisty kind of energy in relationships where, you know, some people with that, they have issues like keeping up long-term relationships. Not everyone. I'm just saying it's something that happens. So, you know, like in whatever area of life you're finding yourself in battles for control, or you did find yourself, you know, that is where there's clues to the healing. And you know, Pluto demands us to probe deep into ourselves and to let go of what's no longer serving us, whether that's a person, a situation, a pattern of behavior, a self-limiting thought, whatever, right? So it really requires us to get real with ourselves and to have a more relaxed attitude. And until that happens, Pluto's theme is crises, and experiencing the darker side of life, right? So it's things like astrology deck, like the deeper kind of deck, anything occult, anything that's like underground and kind of darker side of reality can be the best, right? Um, so yeah, really the rebirth comes from like, if there is a tendency to want to like control others, it's to look at that. And a lot of times with all of these energies, it would come from, you know, potential fear of abandonment, or fear of being unlovable, right? Because when someone feels unlovable, or, you know, and a lot of times these are very unconscious feelings, they will do anything to kind of hold on to stuff. But my gut tells me that you've gotten through a lot of this, and I feel like there's an energy of relationships being very healing for you, and being an area of life where it's a real solace for you. Um, and yeah, so, you know, one way to do this is to channel to this all, because, you know, Sun Square Pluto can create someone who's very powerful, and you can channel this all into your success in life, right? And because your eighth house, your Pluto's in the eighth house, that's speaking to like this real battle between ego, the needs of the soul versus the wants of the ego, and leaving the comfort zone and really diving deep into the psyche, into that exact process I just said. And the fact that it's square the sun gives you kind of a scorpionic feel, right? Um, so then the fact that Chiron's in Leo, like I was saying before, that represents most likely um, real difficulty growing up. A lot of people with that, it's almost like they skipped past that stage of being a kid, right? Of just being a kid. Maybe they had to take on an early responsibility. Um, and with Sun on Saturn, that would make perfect sense, right? That's a theme that happens with Sun conjunct Saturn, you know, Sun Saturn in general, Mars Saturn. Um, just anything tough with Saturn is a lot of times like, you know, maybe it could have been coming from like a difficult situation financially, maybe something, you know, with the parents was difficult, Maybe there's something, you know, running in like the family karma that's difficult. So, yeah, but like really like a lot of times I've seen this, it's like a very strict father. Um, so yeah. But it does give you great discipline to succeed. And I think that a lot of the energy in your chart is very good for that. So yeah, like the more like in your relationship, um, you know, the more, because your son's in the 11th house, so you know your friendships and all that will be very important. So the more friendships you can have that take you away from conditioning and that really open you up to your authentic self, and to be into to really you know, being with causes and caring about causes that you really care about, the better, right? And so once again, you know, Aries rising, so that gives you a lot of assertiveness and firepower to move forward in life. Um, you know, it makes you independent, adventurous, and all that. But before I jump into that, I just want to talk about the T square. So it shoots out into the second into Taurus. So the cure to this is Taurus, which is about grounding, right? Taurus is about grounding. So, and it's about having very solid values, right? And security. So, internal security. So, you know, in essence, and I said that thing with about your relationships that way without even looking and seeing that your Jupiter was on your descendant. So that literally backs what I got psychically without even seeing that shit. You but basically that would just mean, yeah, that you would be very lucky in your relationships, and that you would find partners that really open your eyes to everything, and give you like a higher perspective on your whole life. And then, you know, you have Sun trine Jupiter too, which is a great aspect, which just makes someone popular, optimistic, um, you know, they think big, and it kind of adds the whole traveling thing, the whole Sagittarius thing, the whole philosophy thing. So that's really good. um and it makes one able to be optimistic even during very dark times, and find meaning in life, and be kind of like a teacher, philosopher type person. Um so having, yeah, your Aries rising, oh actually, yeah, so that's so like with the you know, the Chiron opposition and then the Pluto squaring, you know, like, yeah, just finding a really solid grounding within yourself that is a consistency. It's like almost like um like a list of morals and values that you subscribe to, and you base all your decisions off of those. And just physical groundedness, which connects with your Virgo moon, you know, health, fitness, your day-to-day routine, hitting the emotional, spiritual, physical, everything all, right? Making sure that things are locked in, but it's not done in a perfectionist way. Um, but yeah, Virgo moons really feel good when they're able to, like when it comes to partnerships, they want to be able to rely on that person. They're not here to just like create like you know, they're not here to create relationships that don't have foundations. Like they want things to like last. Um it's very important. But then, you know, like with the Venus ascendant energy, um that creates beauty, physical beauty, right? Venus rising, obviously Venus is beauty. So that would make some, you know, I mean, I don't think I've seen a Venus rising person that wasn't beautiful. And if it's not beauty, it's like it's energetic beauty, right? But usually it's beauty. And it's in Aries, which is interesting. So Venus's effect on Aries energy, Aries can sometimes be a little bit too like assertive, almost childish sometimes, like not thinking enough about how much it's going to affect, um you know, it's going to impact um people around it, because it can think so quickly. Now, you know, you don't have an excess of fire, so this, you know, and your Mars, which is the planet that rules Aries, is in Cancer and retrograde. So it is that is actually going to make you a lot more reasonable in that respect, and a lot more thoughtful in terms of your actions. But you know, having a Mars ruled chart is interesting, and Mars being retrograde. You know, we have to think that in past lives there was that reservation in terms of you know, being too close to home. The South Node ruler in the 12th in Pisces, um, you know, Mercury, it's kind of speaking to someone who, you know, someone who maybe had big ideas but didn't go towards them enough, you know? So in this life, you're really trying to like have the ideas and really make movement, adventure towards them. So being an Aries rising really complements you in that area and helps you just go. So in partnerships, I always like to connect things back to partnerships. Like, you know, you definitely can't have a partnership that holds you back from that higher wisdom, from that higher truth, because you're always trying to update what your understanding of greater truth is, right? Um, so yeah, Venus and Aries, funny Aries placement. I get so many, or Venus placement, I get so many Venus and Aries clients, fucking like actually ridiculous. But you know, it just makes it, it's very interesting with relationships because they tend to be the chasers, but then once they get the person they want, they tend to really want more independence and they become very anti-clingy energy. Um, but even, you know, in female charts, like, or like they can sometimes take on the more like naturally, um, or come on, Esme, you want to help me? You know, naturally like male energies. Let's see if Esme can see something. Look, Esme, what do you think? Oh, Pluto, good girl. Thank you, Esme. He does this for a good amount of my readings. Esme, stay. Don't scratch my hands. So Pluto, what we talked about. Yeah, I mean, I guess Esme wants me to talk more about like the Pluto and just like how, yeah, it really is a big thing for you, right? To understand that like there's these key moments in life, and just like on the Pluto square sun, you know, once again, just the need to really think about control and to really do that deep healing work. So, you know, it'll be like in these depths, right? In the depth areas of life that will really come up. So yeah, anyways, so that's Venus and Aries. Like they tend to like, you know, the independent partners, and you know, they care about freedom, they care about independence, they care about being a pioneer in their own life, and they have to watch out for spending. Um, it's good for them um to well, I mean, it's good for you. Yeah, it's good to take time because like with the square with Mars, it's good to take time, but like before, like when you're getting into relationships, um, but you know, with Venus on the ascendant, it definitely, yeah, it definitely adds a more chill factor to your Aries, so you can still be assertive and have all these passions that help you go towards that North Node in Sagittarius, which is also fire, but yeah, but still, but not have like the Aries energy in a way that really kind of, um, you know, can be off-putting. But like I said, lacking the fire, this is actually an energy that you really want, right? Because having the Chiron in Leo, and that's another thing for partnerships and friends in general, is that you want people who you can be your silly self around. You know, you want to be able to feel like a kid. Uh, I mean, of course, a part of you is meant to really accomplish a lot. With Saturn on the Sun, you are like the responsible one. You know, whether you see it or not, you're someone that can be counted on, you know? And you'll get a lot of compensation kind of starting nowish, you know? Um, and probably really start to meet the real soul fam type people, you know? Um, so yeah, like with Mars in retrograde, to me that signals, yeah, past lives where, and it's oh, I guess it's square, yeah, it's not unaspected, but yeah, like I said, there's just like a certain impatience in relationships, So it's good, yeah, like I said, to take time before getting into them. And there can be sort of like a quick to anger with partners, right? But good thing that you have Jupiter in the 7th house, because that would give a lot of great karmic luck, as I said, around the right partners coming into your life at the right time. So Mars in Cancer tends to really like want to work towards things, like towards causes that they care about. Sometimes they can have issues, right, in terms of actually being assertive. So obviously Aries rising, like that is the most assertive sign, but then it's ruled by Mars, which shoots out in Mars retrograde. So sometimes Mars retrograde, that Mars, which is that powerful assertiveness function that we each have, right? Sometimes that can be a little bit more internal, and it can be harder for that person to fully let that energy out, right? And I think that Mars in Cancer people tend to be quite peaceful. But they really need to learn, to allow themselves to be heard. They're also very, very defensive of their family, or people that might not be their family, but that feel like their family. And yeah, the retrograde, yeah, it just really, really makes it important. But yeah, also another thing with Mars and Cancer, there can be lots of intense moods, and like I said, like passive aggression can be something that comes up, and not wanting to be confrontational. So sometimes, and this goes with your Black Moon Lilith, because your Mercury's in Pisces, right, in 12th house. So you have to really watch out when you're around certain people in certain environments, like where you work, and just like the people, your partner, all that stuff, best friends. Like you have to watch out if you're, especially like if you're around a lot of people, like with your job or just in general. Uh, Mercury Pisces, I have that, by the way. So it's not a bad place or anything. It's very, very psychic. But sometimes they can take in information through osmosis, through like an osmosis effect. Um, and it's just really important to know, like, why am I thinking about this, why am I thinking like this? Is this my thought? Is it someone else's? So yeah, like those would be two indications where learning about spending time alone is really important. Mars and Cancer, it's like, when they're hurt, with any Cancer placement like that, you have to watch out for like the isolation, the kind of crawling back in the shell that the Cancer energy can do. And Mars is obviously a super important planet. And learning very solid communication, so that the low vibe Mars Cancer stuff doesn't have like a being passive aggressive, of using like emotional manipulation, all that kind of stuff doesn't have to be used, right? Because it can make someone quite moody with very intense emotions. And it's just not always easy, right? What happened is, man. But like in terms of partnerships, like they're very good at like doing everything to please their partners. Usually they're not like, they usually have like a real desire to create a family, and if they come from like a tough family background, with their parents and their family of origin, oftentimes they want to um form a family of their own to kind of go against that. And it can be quite traditional, but obviously Aquarius is not like that. And yeah, fun fact, a lot of famous tennis players are Mars and Cancer. But yeah, they just have to like they have to understand that like they're they can be at the mercy of their own bad moods. So, and the fact that it squares the ascendant also can also have that effect, right? Mars squared the ascendant can make someone kind of snap at random times. So, and it's exactly sextile the moon, the exact degree, 0.36. So that's going to add a lot of ambitiousness, ambitiousness, and really, it's really good for making you reach your goals in life, be on that path. One thing with Virgo moon though, just another thing is just like the importance of knowing that it's not going to be like this in life, it's like this and like this and like this. So also with Virgo moon, there's a very strong link between like emotions in the body. And if they overwork, they can become sick. And a lot of times as the moon can be the mother, there's like some perfectionist energy from the mother as well. So it could have come from, like just lots of structure and order in your life that, and lots of conditioning that you have to get past. So more with the love stuff, Juno's in Cancer. So, well, actually, I finished the Mars retrograde. The Mars, the fact that it's retrograde, yeah, it's like in past life, you either underacted or overacted. So I think with it's pretty clear to me that with the North Node in Sag, that you're trying, that you may be underacted in certain areas, and that it pushes the kind of assertiveness Mars function within for the first 30 years or so, like the first start of life, and it makes someone really analyze on a soul level, how do I want to come across, how do I want to act, so it can make them kind of like sometimes overthink their actions, but then eventually they get to a place to where they feel very confident within their actions. So Mercury is unaspected, which is interesting. So people unaspected Mercury, so it's in Pisces, which can be quite shy, but it's also like the channel between like the other side and this side, between the two worlds. But you know, so so okay, cool. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that's kind of energy there. I think that like with the Juno though, like you definitely want a partner that's very, very that feel like with Juno Cancer and fourth, that's like you want someone that feels like home, right? Because like obviously, you is a North Node in Sag, you'd want like an adventure buddy in some sense too, but you really like want someone that like wherever you go, that person you can be anywhere and that person like feels like home, like home in a person, right? Very comfortable, very, very secure, lots of security, emotional security. And probably something to do with building a family together. But with Chiron in the fifth house, a lot of your healing can also come through children. Now, there can also be pain that comes up through having children because it could remind you of painful memories of being a kid, but that's also where a lot of healing could potentially come from. Also through creativity, right? Fifth house is creativity too, which is related to you refining your own inner child. But yeah, there's just like so much, as we know, not right now. There's just so much that's learned in partnerships, That's like where your doorway to higher awareness is. And also potentially through creative outlets, artistic creative outlets and just being able to like really create beauty. And I definitely think with Jupiter and Libra, you are someone who can really express a lot of fairness, diplomacy, um, and yeah, have relationships where you're able to kind of like grow spiritually within them. And yeah, just overall be someone who is very, very like, you know, the balancer that people come to in difficult times. And also you're able to really see the beauty in your partners. And part of fortune there, it's like you're able, you know, your flow state is literally when you're in very peaceful and soothing relationships because it soothes your soul. As long as it's not codependent though. That's the shadow side of Libra, where it's like I can't live without this other person. I can't live. Is this still working? What happened? Okay, it is still working. Yeah, like if like you feel like you can't live like happy without a partner. But so on aspect of Mercury, that's what I was saying. So on aspect of Mercury, sometimes it's like Mercury's your voice, it's your communication, it's your thought. Sometimes people like that will just blurt out things, they'll just say things without thinking. But because your Mercury isn't a more traditionally shy sign, Pisces, it could be it's curious how that might affect. Um, Definitely areas of like the occult, esoteric are strong suits for you. Um, I think that you know the more that you try to connect to your spirit guides and you know even like you know mystical, anything esoteric, you know you're gonna have a big. It's gonna really really take you far. Um, but then you know there's also this potential with for kind of yeah, like I said, like difficulty knowing your own thoughts. Um, but yeah, it gives a really strong imagination, and psychic abilities, as I said, intuition, and even the ability to really tune into other people's thoughts, you know? So it's like learning to separate imagination from intuition is key for these types of energies, right? And not like go into a dreamland of over idealism and trusting people too much that shouldn't be trusted. It's all about using the higher octave of that. So your Black Moon Lilith, which is representing the lower vibrate, you at your lower vibration is in Pisces in the 12th. So, um, you know, the way I see that is that it's the potential for getting lost in isolation in your own imagination, creating kind of a fake world. Um, so having like lots of ideas but not following through on them. And I think the Pisces one is a potential for and this you know with Black Moon Lilith, it's all about turning this potential negative, which would only come out when you're at your lowest vibe, into a positive. So you know, sometimes Black Lilith and Pisces might not accept the emotional side of their nature, kind of with the Virgo moon type vibe. It does oppose the Virgo moon. And they might yeah, run away from feeling the depth of their emotions, and they might seek escape like escapism. Now there's nothing wrong with escapism, but you know, you can obviously think of negative forms of it like drugs, escaping like how you really feel, running away from it instead of just facing it, right? Um, so also like playing victim and you know emotional manipulation, like use like playing like kind of playing the card of like the you know using emotions to you know to kind of manipulate people. That's just like a potential bad piece. So what else? Mm-hmm. Let me pull one thing up. So the fear for Pisces luck this is fear of vulnerability. So I kind of already hinted at that, but it's just this little article that I like to talk about. So fear, I'm gonna read this really short. So fear of being hurt that leads to emotional walls, obvious or subtle. On the other end, so yeah, you see how this kind of goes with everything I've been saying. On the other end of the spectrum, they can trust way too fast. Yeah. Which leads to a pain that reinforces the belief they need to protect themselves. Healing comes from relying on intuition and gut feeling. Who just said that? To decide who to trust. No, Mika, not right now. Push like separating imagination from intuition, right? So deciding who to trust and accept that potential pain is a part of the equation in life. Perfectly said. All right. So yeah. So you can definitely work well in groups, and like, yeah, groups are meant to be a big part of your process. I think that Saturn 11th house people, like what I've noticed is that, and I have quite a few of them like in my life, they it's kind of like they just they tend to have pretty high standards for friends. That's what I've realized. Some people will just like welcome people in and be like, oh, my friend, my friend, my friend. And like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But like, I feel like the Star 11th house, a lot of times, now you are an Aquarius sun, so that's very related to having lots of friends, and you have Jupiter trine your sun. But yeah. So then you have Neptune and Uranus together with Vesta in the 10th house in Capricorn. So whenever I see those two together in the 10th house, I always think that the person is like, a lot, their dharma is really related to compassion in some way. Now, that doesn't mean that, because Capricorn is a midheaven, can definitely have someone who, is really trying to build and really trying to succeed in their life in more traditional ways. But when you throw those two energies, I think that it makes it extra important. I've seen a lot of people with this, and most of them at some point or another in their lives, they take a career path that, if they're able to, right, that's more around helping other people, healing, compassion, all that stuff. And the fact that it's connected to Vesta, that reinforces that even more in terms of your work, right? So yeah. So Vesta, yeah, in the 10th house, that just gives lots of dedication to the career and lots of discipline to the career. Sometimes it can be adding a lot of perfectionism to the career. So there can be issues like settling into just one career path, right? Um, so that's something. And the Sag North Node, you're meant to experience a lot, right? But one of the things to run away from is like being the jack of all trades, master of none. So it's good to explore a lot, but then it's like good to focus on, okay, what is the most important? Um, so yeah, it's just like in Capricorn, very good for ambition and structure in the workplace and just in your overall career. So you can really succeed working for others or working for yourself, like in management positions, or even, even as an entrepreneur, because you'll have with that Saturn energy, Capricorn Saturn energy, you'll have the discipline that it takes to be an entrepreneur, to be self-motivated. But, sixth house moon, a lot of times that, can give, yeah, that can relate to the workplace as well, and having like a lot of emotional connection to the workplace. But it also just makes like health a focus, whether it's like intellectual, emotional, physical, spiritual, anything like that. Um, yeah. Um, and I think with Uranus in 10th house is like it's all about like having a very unconventional career through which you can like really contribute to humanity. And there can be a feeling of restlessness in one profession, as I said, right? And there can be like a boom, like change of direction at a time that feels random. And then with Neptune, it's like, yeah, like I said before, like wanting to really be of service to the profession, and yeah. And sometimes like with the whole Pluto ego versus soul thing, that can actually play out in the career where the person might feel a certain need to sacrifice something that maybe to the ego, like let's say it's like the lawyer versus the versus like the therapist, right? They might feel, or the coach or something like the lawyer one might really be make the ego feel better in terms of want, but then their soul might be nurtured by the other one. Um, yeah, so just relationships really open up a lot for you. And I think another thing, like with people, no, Mika, with people who have like a lot of like vision and a lot of like sureness of like their direction, that will really, really inspire you. Okay. So Ceres is conjunct Mercury, so you definitely are someone who can be very nurturing through the way you speak. You can speak in a very sweet manner that can be very, very healing, and knowing like what to say at the right time. Um, when you're studying anything esoteric, spiritual, when you're also giving to the universe, giving to society, giving helping others who are suffering, that's when you really you really really feel with your moon and Virgo, with your Sirius and Pisces, you feel great when you're doing that. It really nurtures your soul. And then that leads that Sirius and Pisces like experiencing a oneness with the world. And you really feel that when you're helping people, when you're truly helping people on a deep level. You really, really are taking their pain away or opening their eyes to a new reality. So yeah, compassion is really like a gate opener for you. And then last of the asteroid of the four great asteroids is Pallas. And Pallas in the 11th, Pallas is kind of like our third eye or strategic mind. So in Aquarius, how many of my clients have Pallas in Aquarius? A lot. That just gives like a very like original kind of out of this universe kind of way of thinking, right? Very, very insightful, ahead of their time, all that stuff. Really, grasping ideas that they can apply to future ventures and ahead of their time thinking, kind of ingenious, right? That sometimes they can be a little bit misunderstood, and very, very, very humanitarian as well. And the 11th house, that's really, really good, for being able to work with people, with groups, and in a way that benefits humanity. Um, and yeah, it's just very, very good for kind of working well in groups. Okay. Pull this up. So you have the asteroid Fama, which is related to fame on your moon. That's not one of my specialized asteroids. But I do know that apparently it's related to fame, but that's one of the ones Haley looks at, and I don't necessarily know much about them. Um, about that one at least, but it is 2 degrees from your moon. Doesn't mean you're going to be famous. I think that it's more just speaking to like the potential for fame, but I don't really think of the asteroid as that strong. Not that you can't be famous. I'm just saying that It's not like an asteroid that I've worked with a lot. Um, hey, you really are not having that many conjunctions. Interesting. So you're, oh no, never mind. NBN. Okay, well, speaking of the fame thing, you have Fortuna, which is another one that's about that on your midheaven. So that's two that are kind of saying that there is potential for fame of some sort, you know, prominence, success, high success. Ooh. I don't like to talk about like I hate saying the word sexy. I fucking hate it. Ooh, nice. Oh shit. You have you have Urania on your Mercury and Industria. Wow. So you could literally be an astrologer. Yeah, you could literally like you could do something with your communication with that Mercury in Pisces. And because it rules your south node, there could be um like some talents there, right? With respect to like your ability to think and communicate. So that is neat. And then Urania is literally the asteroid of astrology and anything related to like the stars. So that is quite cool. Like my power. Um, so yeah, the whole thing about I was gonna say about the sexy and like I literally don't know what you look like, so don't take it as a weird thing. But I already saw you had Venus rising and Lust. This is an asteroid that I fucking know. My girlfriend has it. I've come across several women who have this, several girls that have this, and I just lost Wi-Fi for like a minute, so it's finally back. It's so annoying. I have to use my freaking um hotspot. Okay, that should be good. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so I was talking about lust. So lust, it just like lust is the sexy asteroid. Like that's just the way it is. It creates kind of like an erotic energy, honestly. And to have it on your sun exact degree, like 0.07 away. Like, but this is the thing about lust that's interesting. I've seen it in girls, and like sometimes, okay, it's obviously great to be sexy, right? And I differentiate between beautiful, like kind of princess beauty. Not to say that like, you know, Venus on your sun would probably give you that. Lust is like a very like, I don't like to use not is a it's just lust, you know, it's lust, it's lust. So it gives someone that kind of like I think it's like a gift and a well, that was weird. I just read the word gift and I said it. But it can be kind of a gift and a curse because it's like, yeah, it's cool to be sexy and stuff, but like um at the same time, that'd be pretty fucking annoying, you know, to just like exude this like sexual energy when you're not sexual, you know, like, or when you're not like in that kind of mood. And I've seen it turn into stalkers for people, um, and obsession, right? I've seen it turn into those things. So, um, obviously, you know, it's great and it makes relationships really, really good because, you know, it can just really keep things spicy for a long period of time. I think that it's common in modern relationships to get sort of sick. Like it's just human nature the potential for getting sick, but I think that females who have lust prominent, they have a lucky cheat code. And when you have Venus on your ascendant, that's also really helping you, not just for looks and all that, but just overall having kind of like a nice flair to you, a nice kind of like charm is for men, whatever the female word for charm is, like an eloquence, you know, a nice aura, a nice soothing aura, but it's mixed with this like Aries feistiness. So yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's just see. So yeah, okay, so you have the follow already. So do let me know. Do let me know if you want to do what most people do, which is instead of just having the follow, um, adding the current astrology to the follow. So usually that's like three something, 380 or something like that. I would do it for 260. You just have to remind me that I gave you that price. And basically it would not be a long wait like this was. It's because it's a live session. Hour one follow-up, just about what we talked about today, comparing your lived experience with this. Hour two and three, or how, you know, like sometimes it takes less, and well, it's only taking less once or twice. But these days I've been making my readings shorter, and I've been, you know, basically saying everything in a more, I don't know, to the point way. It's just something I've been working on, and very proud that this reading is at, for the moment, 1 hour 10. But yeah, so if you want to just keep the follow-up, that's totally fine. But in the current astrology slash spiritual alignment, that's the name for it, we talk about, I talk, instead of like a lot of astrologers, they will have a different session for progressions, a progress chart, a different one for transits, a different one for solar return, um, all these different things. I do it all in one session. It's not too much information because we're really comparing it to, we're trying to understand where you're at right now. There's natal astrology, all this, it never changes. This is the hand of cards you were dealt, right, at birth. And then there's, you know, there's this stuff. There's the current astrology, which is always changing, right? So I have this like allergy thing. But yeah, it's a very interesting chart. I look forward to talking to you and diving into it now. I hope that, actually, I want to see one other thing. No, wait, yeah. Okay, I found another T square that somehow I didn't see before, which is, well, yeah, ascendants, we usually don't count them for T squares. But it'd be ascendant Mars, Jupiter, shoots out a Capricorn. Wait, did I not talk about? Oh, I see. Oh yeah, last thing. So the fact that you have your Venus and your Ascendant together opposite Jupiter in the seventh, that creates the axis of Aries and Libra as being very important in your life. And this is the axis between the extreme of Libra is like codependent, right? Like I can't live without my partner, that type of vibe, right? The extreme of Aries is like, I'm not willing to make any fucking sacrifices. Fuck that shit. Like my way or the highway, right? So it's really about finding that balance between having relationships that are very peaceful and all that. Um, but not being codependent and still keeping your independence and still going towards that north node in Sagittarius and that Plutonian eighth house work, right? Mixed with your Dharma with the Neptune and Mercury. So yeah, important stuff. And I did want to check one more thing. I'm just gonna keep saying, I want to check one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. Reports. Yeah, so your Mars is out of bounds. So when Mars is out of bounds, you might be someone who, even though it's in Cancer, you know, is just really, really defensive of their family, really defensive of the causes they care about, and just will not be stopped as an Aquarius to tackle to do all in their power to you know to make sure that those areas are good. Okay, so yeah, your son, your okay. So 7, 5. So that is Pluto and Venus are contra parallel. So it's kind of like an opposition between the two. And yeah, at that point you just have to watch out for being like for your with your self-love, it's really important to the more like and maybe this showed up earlier in your life and you have to let me know about all this stuff. Like you should take notes, watch this a few times most likely, and have notes so we can have talking points. But you know, if like it kind of goes with what I was saying before. If relationships like until real self-love, right? Because it can be hard with the Saturn on the Sun, the Saturn's for Pluto. It can make someone very hard on themselves until they really reach a certain evolutionary point. Um, you know, until that's reached, sometimes until it's reached, sometimes what can happen is that you can attract or like go towards partners that are very, very dark. Now you do have Jupiter on the descendant, but that's just kind of the energy of the hard aspect with Venus and Pluto. And I have one, so I could totally, yeah. And yeah, with Sun and Pluto, it could be like, you know, attracting relationships that are kind of like, you know, getting you into your shadow more and even in a sense like, and this I imagine is probably when, you know, when you were younger and less into your spiritual journey, that kind of have like a very competitive like power struggle energy. So all right, yeah. So let me know about if you want to add the other reading or if you want to just stick to the follow up. Take your time with this. There's no rush. Getting back to me. Thank you so much for your patience. And what else? Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Ciao.